Here's a hard truth. Toxic relationships are not created by one person alone. It takes two people to be toxic. And I know that that is a hard pill to swallow, especially if you've been deeply hurt by past partners. And the reality is, it really does take two people to be toxic. And looking at this, I think, is a hard thing to really sit with and really examine because it can feel like we are excusing some of the terrible things that our past partners have done. But that is not what I want. That's not my intention with this episode. My intention for this episode is for you to realize your side of the street so that in your next relationship, or if you are already in a relationship right now that you don't want your past learnings, your past PTSD from your past toxic relationships to bleed into this relationship. If you really are here because you deeply desire that healthy connection and that healthy love, that is why I want to bring this idea to you that it takes two people to be toxic. And I'm going to talk about some behaviors that you might have done in your past relationships or you might be doing now that we don't necessarily label as toxic, but I think it creates toxic relationships because the way we are acting, the actions, the behaviors, the choices we make, that really reflects the type of person that we get into a relationship with. It really teaches them how to treat us. And that's why I want to bring all of these things to you. So, if you can see these subtle ways that you're contributing, which are, I'm going to be talking about people pleasing, about that thing we like to do where we expect our partner to read our mind and just know what we want or know certain things without us like specifically communicating those things, shutting down, overriding your body, all of these things stop you from being in your power. And the point of this episode is for you to regain your power back, to build that self awareness. And both of those things, the self awareness and regaining your power back, will make healthy love possible for you. So, in this episode, we're going to unpack the hidden ways that we might co create toxicity, why self awareness is that secret sauce for healthy relationships, how truth telling can bring you closer in the right love while naturally releasing the wrong relationships. Welcome to Worthy of Love, the podcast for ambitious, self-aware women who desire to deeply connect to healthy love. Whether you're single or in a relationship already, this show is here to help you slow down, reconnect with your body, and to help you realize that you are capable and worthy of cultivating and maintaining healthy love, even if you have a history of toxic relationships. I am your host, Celia Antonio. I am a certified relationship coach and a certified female sexuality coach, and I am so grateful that you are here. Now let's get into the show. Welcome or welcome back to, I almost said openly spoken because that's what the show used to be called, but welcome or welcome back to Worthy of Love, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen in healthy relationships. My name is Celia. I'm a certified female sexuality coach, certified relationship coach, and I'm your guide on the show. And speaking of how the show used to be called Openly Spoken, we have recently rebranded and we are starting absolutely fresh on all of our podcasting platforms. So if you are listening to this right now, can you please go write us a review? It would really help on Apple and it would really help on whatever podcasting platform you are listening on. And that would mean the absolute world to me. And yeah, let's get into this episode. And I want to start this episode by just kind of telling you that if you've been in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship in the past, no matter if you do any of these behaviors that I'm labeling as toxic, it still does not mean that you deserved that toxic relationship. Nothing about you makes mistreatment okay. But healing and growth will invite us all to take an honest look at your side of things, because in a relationship, it is two worlds coming together. It is two people coming together, two sets of behaviors coming together. And unfortunately, the only part of a relationship with those two sides that you have control over is your side of the street, keeping your side of the street clean. This conversation is not about blame. It's about liberation. It's about reconnecting you to your personal power. It's about noticing the unconscious patterns that you might bring into love so that you can choose new ways of showing up, new ways that create safety, that create intimacy, and that create the type of relationships where you're not walking on eggshells, but you are grounded and relaxed and just truly self-expressed, and you're showing up, you're speaking out, you're being seen, you're walking in your truth, and you are deeply connected to healthy love. Okay, so let's talk about the behaviors that we don't always recognize as toxic, but that, in my opinion, I label these behaviors as toxic behaviors basically because they are all signs that we are not being 100% our true, authentic self. And because these behaviors create a feedback loop that only creates relationships that are toxic. It's really hard to do all of these behaviors and have a deeply connected, healthy relationship, unless, of course, like I don't want this episode to make you think that you have to be like perfect for healthy love, but unless you have that self-awareness and that very deep and open communication on both sides, like if you are working on these behaviors and you still do these behaviors, but you are able to openly communicate, you are able to be truthful with your partner, and they are able to hear you and see you, you can work through it and you will grow, because that will give you that safety. If you have a partner that you can really truly be like, hey, these are my imperfections, this is what I'm working on. And if they are open and empathetic to those things, it just gives you that much more motivation to continue those little micro steps of being a better and better version of yourself every day. And that's what I think healthy love really boils down to, is it's a person in your life that helps you become a better version of you every single day. Um, that's kind of a disservice to healthy love to like summarize it all down to that one point, but I think that is one of the summaries of what healthy love is. Okay, so let's go through all of these toxic behaviors. So the first one is people pleasing. People pleasing is saying yes when you want to say no. People pleasing is molding yourself to avoid conflict. And people pleasing is overgiving so that your partner won't leave. And in people pleasing, I just want to let you know that it's not your fault if you're people pleasing. I think that typically the socialization that women and girls get is that people pleasing is a normal behavior that we are like supposed to do. What's coming to mind is the whole be a good girl type of conditioning that I have noticed that a lot of women really resonate with that conditioning. It is something that we learn in the home. It is something that we learn from religion. If you grow up in a religious family, there can be a lot of kind of like the subtle underlying layer of needing to be agreeable, needing to serve from a place of like putting your needs behind. People pleasing can also really show up like if you are in a space where you've had a history of toxic relationships and you are dating someone who is completely different from the past kind of toxic people you've been with before, there might be this people pleasing might come up in this sense of desperation of, wow, this person is amazing. I didn't know that people like this existed. And you might have this tendency to want to hang on to that person. And so then you will do the overgiving. You might act in certain ways as you get to know what this person likes. You might act in certain ways to kind of like fit their own mold of what they are looking for. And so this is something really to look out for because people pleasing creates toxicity because it is teaching your partner a false version of yourself. You are not truly being yourself. And so when someone is falling in love with you while you are doing people pleasing, they're not actually falling in love with you. They're falling in love with this fake persona that you are putting out there. And it's going to create resentment inside of you because if you're constantly saying yes to things that you really want to say no to, um, anger is going to build up, that resentment is going to build up, and it's signaling in your relationship with yourself that your needs don't matter. And what's so ironic about this is if you are in a relationship where the other person genuinely cares about you, but you're bringing in this people pleasing and you are saying yes to them when you want to say no, then if you are not aware, if you don't have the self-awareness, you might be putting way more blame on the other person for you feeling shitty when you are also contributing to it because you are not fully being yourself. You're not fully making space for your own needs. So then how is your partner supposed to meet your needs if you are constantly telling yourself that your needs don't matter? So the way to shift out of this, if you are doing people pleasing, is by starting really small and by noticing when it is that you're saying yes, when your body is saying no. And practice when someone asks you, when someone invites you somewhere or asks you for something, practice pausing before responding. And remember that real, true love can handle the truth from you. And you saying no to someone when you want to say no is love. Because think about it this way. If you say yes to someone to, let's say someone asks you to like help them wash their car on a Saturday morning, and you really want to say no because you have plans. And the plans are you have something planned with yourself. Let's say you wanted to spend like a spa day at home or something like that. But in your mind, you're like, oh, like that doesn't matter. I'm free. Like I have plans, but it's not like with anyone. I feel like that's kind of a common thing with people pleasing is we can put kind of like self-love and self-care at a lower priority than caring for other people. And so back to the scenario, if someone's inviting you and you want to say no, but you say yes, think about the energy that you are going to show up for this person. Like if you show up when you really didn't want to be there versus if you said yes because you genuinely wanted to be there. Just take a moment to imagine what that difference would be. And hopefully that can help you realize that you saying yes only when you want to say yes and you saying no when you want to say no is love. Because if you are showing up saying yes when you want to say no, you're showing up with this negative energy that will build up over time. And it is not fair to the person that you are saying yes to. And that's how even if we if we have this cycle of toxic relationships and then we end up in a relationship that like this person seems like so much better than previous partners that we've had, this people pleasing thing can really sabotage that first healthy relationship we've had because that resentment keeps building up and that negative energy keeps building up, and it's only creating distance between you and the partner. I could keep talking about this forever, but let's move on to the second toxic behavior, and that is avoidant behavior. Now, you may or may not be doing this, but this can, I feel like people pleasing can kind of lead to this um, because people pleasing is very exhausting and you could end up in a space where you are very burned out. So then you want to be avoidant. My neighbor's dogs are barking in the background. Hopefully, you can't hear them. Let's take a drink of water. Avoidant behavior looks like withdrawing, shutting down, ghosting, or pretending everything is fine when it's not. I feel like these are all very much tied in with people pleasing, like pretending everything's fine when it's not. If you're pretending everything's fine when it's not, and you're dating, you are missing out on an opportunity to speak up for your needs and missing out on an opportunity for your partner to show up for those needs. You're missing out on an opportunity to grow closer to your partner because you're not fully letting them in. And the withdrawing and the shutting down, those can both happen from feeling burnt out from people pleasing. It can happen also because maybe your past history of toxic relationships has left an imprint on you where it feels safer to withdraw and shut down. And when certain topics are brought up, maybe in a relationship, these topics might be things that you feel yourself shutting down because in a previous relationship, when you talked about this topic, it didn't go well. Or maybe certain things come up that make you shut down because you feel shame. Like if you're with a partner who asks you about your previous relationships or your previous sexual experiences, you might shut down because there might be some form of like internal judgment or internal shame about your past. And yeah, all of this creates toxicity because it's making your partner not feel safe. It makes them like they notice that they can't reach you. And when they can't reach you, it makes them feel unsafe because if they can't reach you, how are they going to trust that you can really fully be there for them and hold them? And these things, this like shutting down and ghosting and being avoidant, creates distance, and it's going to turn small issues into massive blowups later. I think that's also something that comes up with people pleasing. It's just like this constant, like the similar thing with people pleasing and avoidant behavior is they're both avoiding the truth, which I think I said in the beginning of this episode that all of these behaviors are just avoiding truth. So how do we shift out of avoidant behavior? This one's my favorite. So this is one of my favorite practices to do. I invite you to, if you want to shift out of avoidant behavior, to practice naming discomfort, even if it feels crunchy or clunky. If you are in the midst of wanting to shut down in a conversation and you don't have the perfect words, telling your partner something like, I'm feeling a little, I don't feel like I have capacity for this conversation right now. Can we circle back to this? That is so much better than just not responding. Telling your partner maybe even how you feel in your body, like saying like, oh, I am very aware that this is an important conversation and I want to give you a loving response. And it's hard for me right now because in my body, my heart's beating really fast, my chest feels inflamed, and just really be honest about your internal experience and what is happening for you. I feel like that's a really great way to really great like micro shift to start and get out of that avoidant behavior. And again, notice or remember that true, honest love, it's always safe to be truthful, and a person that really cares about you will be able to handle you explaining your internal experience. The third behavior that contributes to toxic relationships, while we're here in this conversation to talk about your side of the street, is expecting mind reading. So, what this looks like is having some sort of internal dialogue where, or having some sort of belief where you're like, if they loved me, they would just know what I need. It also looks like withholding your truth to test if your partner can guess. And that's kind of manipulative because if you're testing if they can guess, I feel like you're giving your partner an opportunity to be wrong, and you're creating a scenario in the future where you get to be mad at them. And this creates toxicity. Expecting mind reading creates toxicity because it's setting your partner up to fail. It's fueling your resentment, and it's only going to keep your needs unmet because you are not communicating your needs. So the way that you would shift out of this is replacing a mind reading with truth telling and trying maybe something like, I would feel so loved if you could blank. Or would really feel like my needs were met if you could blank. What I really need in this moment is blank. I would really love it if we could blank. Really just speaking out loud what it is that you want instead of making it a guess. And it can feel, for some people, it can feel like maybe a bit unsexy that like your partner isn't able to guess your needs. And I feel like that could be maybe this element if you're a person that really loves surprises. But that's a completely different thing than expecting your partner to know what it is that you need. I think if I think if you've been in a long-term relationship where there's a situation that comes up where in the past you have told your partner what it is that you need, and maybe you've been in a long-term relationship and you feel like if you've been in a long-term relationship and you have made it a habit to speak your needs and you feel like your partner isn't able to remember what it is that you've said, like that's a completely different thing. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because again, I don't want this conversation to have you override anything that might have happened in your toxic relationships where it was the other person, like not being able to be a healthy partner for you. So I just wanted to give that little exclaimer. I was going to say exclaimer, disclaimer. The fourth habit of behaviors that we could be doing that are contributing to a toxic relationship is something that many, many women resonate with, and that is overriding your body in the bedroom. And this is saying yes to sex when your body is a no, rushing into penetration before you're ready, and tolerating discomfort just to keep your partner happy. And overriding your body in the bedroom is something that is so common because we are so undereducated about female sexuality. We're so undereducated about sexuality in general, about healthy relationships. And young girls and teenagers, when we see things like porn or even like, like TV shows and movies, the narrative of sexuality is very different than what sex is like in real life. And there isn't any space created for slowness in media when it comes to sexuality. And then women learn to relate to their sexuality or think of their sexuality as the same as male sexuality, which is quicker to be ready, whereas female sexuality takes some time to open up. This is also very much tied to the conditioning that we usually receive as women and girls that teach us to be agreeable. I feel like this habit of overriding your body in the bedroom is really just an extension of people pleasing. It can also be an extension of perfectionism, because when we're overriding our body in the bedroom, we might want to portray this like perfect image of what we think a woman in the bedroom is supposed to be like. So you might be doing things like faking orgasms or performing rather than really actually being in your body and communicating with your partner. And the reason why overriding your body in the bedroom creates a toxic relationship is because it creates self-betrayal. And over time, that self-betrayal is going to build disconnection, and it can even build a trauma response inside of the relationship. Because if you are overriding your body and you are not advocating for your own body, your body is then having physical experiences that is overriding your body's consent. And that will create a trauma response inside the relationship. You will feel unsafe in the relationship because you did not advocate for yourself. So the way to shift out of this is to honor your body's pace by slowing down. I have recorded previous solo episodes where I talked about slowing down with your sensations and really speaking out loud sensations you feel in the moment and where you feel in the moment. That can be a very good practice. So go ahead and listen to those episodes if you have not. Those are just a couple of weeks back. And then also, another way to shift out is communicating with your partner, telling them, I'm not ready for this, whatever it is you're doing. I'm not ready for this yet, but I would love to do blank. And I think the practice that I invited you to do, the felt sense practice, helps us be able to have the confidence to even speak up in the bedroom. That's something that I've seen this practice do for my clients. It's something that this kind of practice has done for me. And I think it's because when you're doing a felt sense practice, you're practicing that communication that you would do with a partner. You're practicing that with yourself, and you're building that skill. And then you can take that skill into your relationship. And yeah, just know that a partner that is worth your time will actually respect this. Like if you're saying, I'm not ready for this, but I'd love to do something else instead, they will respect that, because they want to be there for your needs. They want to make you feel good. And again, real love can handle the truth. All of these behaviors that I'm listing they're all toxic behaviors. Again, I think I've said this is like the third time I'm saying this, but these are all toxic behaviors because you're not acting in truth. You're not in your authentic self. And I just really want to drive the point home that true healthy love can handle that truth. And truth is the only path to have that true healthy love. And so whatever it is that you need to do to create that confidence and that safety for that truth is what you need to do. So really take a moment to realize where you are in your journey with that, to be able to do those little micro things that let you know I am honoring what's true for me in a way that's like deeper than you ever have before. Okay, let's move on to the next toxic behavior that contributes to toxic relationships, and that is conflict avoidance. This one is, again, an extension of people pleasing. But what conflict avoidance looks like is swallowing your feelings, walking on eggshells, or distracting with humor instead of addressing issues. And conflict avoidance can be very common for those of us who grew up in dysfunctional households because there was so much conflict in that household when we were kids, and it made us feel so unsafe that we feel like if we could only avoid conflict in our relationship, that it will be safe. And if conflict comes up in our relationship because of having that like dysfunctional childhood past, we might see conflict as a sign that the relationship is doomed, that the person's going to leave you, that you're broken. But that is not true at all. And I feel like that sense of thinking that everything is safer if we can just avoid conflict is actually a huge lie, because when you're avoiding conflict, you're actually creating more unsafety because you're walking on eggshells. Like, it's that feeling of just like there's tension in the room, and I think your partner can feel that. Your partner can sense that you're holding back and they won't trust you. And yeah, conflict avoidance creates toxicity because the conflict at hand won't just disappear. It won't just go away. And for a lot of conflicts, it really is surprising. Maybe you've been in this situation before where it's really surprising how just having a conversation about it can clear it up. Sometimes there's a conflict where there was just a very simple miscommunication, and maybe you're avoiding it and avoiding it and avoiding it, and your brain is making it this bigger thing than it needs to be. And then when you finally go talk to your partner, it was just this one simple communication. And you're like, oh, I didn't need to stress out about this for weeks or however long it's been. So the conflict won't disappear if you avoid it, it just festers. And over time, this can create, again, an explosion. It can create yelling. It can create fighting in a way that is not healthy. And that's, again, what people pleasing will create. That's, again, what avoidant behavior will create. This conflict avoidance behavior is an extension of people pleasing. So how can you shift out of conflict avoidance? To shift out of conflict avoidance, I'll invite you to see if you can reframe conflict as intimacy. So what I mean by this is when conflict comes up in your relationship, see if you can see the invitation to speak about a conflict as an invitation to get closer to your partner. Knowing that sharing your perspective respectfully gives your partner a chance to know you more deeply, and also vice versa. When they are sharing their perspective, you'll learn something new about them and you'll feel more connected with them. Okay, one more toxic pattern or toxic behavior that I will share that contributes to toxic relationships is romanticizing potential. This is such an interesting one. Romanticizing potential looks like falling in love with what someone could be rather than who they actually are right now. And when you're doing this, you're overlooking red flags because you can see their heart or their soul's potential. This creates a dynamic where you're, again, overriding your needs, you're overriding your intuition, you're overlooking red flags, you are creating all this, maybe like all this stress is happening in your relationship from the way this partner is treating you, but you are letting it all be okay because you quote unquote see their potential. And you'll end up in a cycle where the person never changes. And I think something that's kind of beautiful about this behavior is it shows your empathy, because you can like, you want to connect with this person even though they are flawed, and that is very beautiful. However, falling in love with their potential rather than who they are is unfair to the both of you because you are falling in love with something that they aren't. Even if you think you can see their potential, that's not who they are in this moment, and that might not be who they ever become. And while it is very beautiful that you want them to grow and you want them to live up to their potential, they might not get there. They might not even want to get there. They might say that they want to get there to keep you around and without any intention of ever getting there. And so this is a very slippery slope of falling in love with someone's potential. And this creates toxicity because it keeps you in relationships that drain you. I think that it perpetuates people pleasing because you are overlooking red flags, pretending things are okay because you're in love with their potential. And it also creates toxicity because you might be waiting for someone to change that has no intention of doing so. And so then resentment is building up. And when you finally decide to walk away, there might be all this guilt and anger for wasting all this time on this relationship. And if that's you, I want to say, like, even if you do feel like you wasted your time, the only way we can go is forward. And if that person helped you put your foot down and be like, enough is enough, at least you got that out of the relationship. At least you got some sort of self-advocacy out of the relationship, and you've gotten to a point where you've had enough that you will never do that again. So how do we shift out of romanticizing potential? I'm just going to offer you a question for that, to really anchor into this reality by asking yourself, if nothing ever changed about this person, would I still want to be here? If nothing ever changed about this person, would I still want to be here? And if that answer is no, it's time to go. Okay. Let's start to close out this episode because this has been one of my longest solo episodes in a while. So I want to close this out with just leaving you with the bigger picture of why self-awareness and communication matters. Because none of us is perfect. We won't ever be completely free of these behaviors. People pleasing will pop up sometimes. Avoidance will creep in sometimes. But healthy relationships aren't built on perfection. Isn't that great? They're not built on perfection. They're built on awareness and communication. And so it is very important to be aware of when you are going into these behaviors. And it is very important to communicate that to your partner. So when you notice, I'm people pleasing right now, share that vulnerability with your partner, because then you break the cycle. And when your partner says, hey, I shut down back there, can I try again? That is growth. That is intimacy. You're both being truthfully honest with each other, and telling the truth does two things. One, it brings the relationship closer together. And two, it naturally moves the wrong relationship apart. And that could be, I think both of those outcomes are good, even though that second one can sound very scary. But I just want to let you know, the wrong relationship is not a failure. It's information. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn what to look for in the next relationship. It's clarity. And more importantly, it's space for the right relationship. So if you take one thing away from this episode today, let it be this. You are not powerless in love. Yes, it takes two people to create a toxic relationship, but it also takes two people to create safety, to create intimacy, and to create long-lasting connection. Your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to be aware, to tell the truth, and to communicate. even when it feels scary. And the more you practice this, the more your body will learn that it is safe to tell the truth and it is safe to communicate, because when you are in that situation where you're openly and intimately communicating your truth and you're with the right person, whether or not they end up being like a forever partner or not, maybe it's just a relationship that is short term. Um, but if you're having those experiences where you are opening up and telling the truth about something and they handle it well, your body is getting that feedback like, oh, it's actually okay to be myself. And that only grows the more you have those experiences. And that is how you create a deeper confidence within yourself. That is something that's going to help you create deeper self love. That is also something that, like, this is why I feel like dating and relationships are such a great opportunity to learn more about yourself, because you have those experiences of being your truthful self that you may or may not have had in childhood. And that gives you that confidence that you maybe missed out on in childhood. It gives you that sense of self esteem, of self love, of worthiness that you might have missed out on in childhood. And yeah, that's where I'll end things today. If this episode resonated for you, I would really love it if you would leave us a review over on Apple. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment below on what resonated with you the most. And if you want to go deeper with any of these patterns and you are looking for a one-on-one relationship coach and you are an ambitious woman with a history of toxic relationships who desires to feel deeply connected in healthy love, I am a one-on-one coach. I currently have a couple of openings for one-on-one coaching. I will leave the link to that in the show notes below. And yeah, that's all. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye.